guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies, and you know they are really groovy. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal talking about movies. Two guys and a gal, they're talking about movies, and we know they are really groovy.
Good evening, everybody. Whether you are listening and watching on the replay squad or you are in our live audience on one of our live platforms, we greet you. We are so grateful for you. Please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Cosmos Creative TV, and make sure that you put in your comments if you agree or you disagree. What's your ranking? What are your favorite movies? Do you agree with your hosts or do you have a different opinion? We love hearing from you, and we try to get back to you as often as we can. Today, we have a beautiful treat for you because almost everybody on the planet has been exposed to at least one of this famous director's movies. We are talking about Stanley Kubrick. Yes, he was one of the greatest filmmakers of the last century, and everybody that I know has a personal opinion about whether they love him or hate him. And people tend to be very, very emotional and very vitriolic about their opinions about specific films of his. He tended to have a different perspective. He showcased his films in a way, and he directed his actors in ways that were a little bit against the grain or a lot against the grain, offensive sometimes, controversial, certainly, and he just had a different way of looking at the universe. So to talk more in depth about Stanley Kubrick, let's bring up your hosts, Manny Zamora and Rory Penland. Hey, guys.
All right.
Are we going to talk about Eyes Wide Shut?
Oh, of course.
Because that should be the whole show, right?
That's going to be our number one.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's everybody's number one. We'll just go home.
It is.
Unfortunately, I think most people at the time were like, "Well, at least we got to see Nicole Kidman naked." You know.
I remember Nicole Kidman.
But man, wow, what a train wreck. Anyway.
Well, let's talk about why it was a train wreck. So, of course, let's just start that way. So, Eyes Wide Shut, of course, has been panned across the board. Most people tend to have not been impressed by it or been very disappointed by it. And he kind of went out on his career. You know, that was sort of one of the later films that he had. Or was it the last film? I'm trying to remember.
It was
his last film. Yeah. So a lot of people are really,
it was like,
people are disappointed.
He directed that film with Eyes Wide Shut.
Well, what is it that people don't like about Eyes Wide Shut? I also just was so bored by. I mean, I thought it was awful, just stupid and boring, and it was to me, it was like somebody trying to be interesting and controversial and just failing and making everyone just zone out the whole time. That was my experience.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You expect a lot better from Stanley.
Yeah, you expect better.
And I mean, there are other movies that do that kind of story much better.
Yeah.
The one I think it's called After Hours.
Yep, After Hours
with Griffin Dunn.
Yeah.
And going through a night of horrific terror. But it's all dark comedy. I mean,
right.
That does this thing much better. And the biggest problem that I had with it, I saw it for the first time last night. The biggest problem I had with it was I was just aware of the performances, and that falls squarely on the director.
Right, exactly. And, Jamie Bennett's here, and she said that she fell asleep within 30 minutes. She tried to watch, she couldn't. So that tends to be across the board. Manny, what was your impression of Eyes Wide Shut?
We got to see Nicole Kidman naked.
if that's the best that somebody can say, that's really not great for a filmmaker. That's not what a filmmaker wants to hear.
There was, at the heart of it, there was an interesting mystery. But yeah, this is clearly not somebody at their height of their power. In fact, I think Kubrick was, it's a failure on so many levels. Not even Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, naked or otherwise, could have saved this movie. And that's unfortunate. I mean, there were some intriguing things about it, but there was so far and so far and in between, and there's just nothing that really held it together. I mean, it just sort of
Yeah.
just meandered all over the place. Cruise, I felt like he really wasn't engaged with the story. Nicole, I think, gave a little bit better performance, but at the end was like, what was that about? What was I like the whole orgy scene, not for obvious reasons, but because again, it was that weird sort of I like weird,
No.
and I could imagine that
I
being
like
like
the costume shop scene for the same reason.
yeah,
That was like, if the rest of the movie had been like that 5 minutes,
exactly.
it probably would have been one of those movies that you talked about to your friends.
Right, exactly. Um, yeah, and that's what I mean. It was so there were little moments of actual good filmmaking, but it just didn't hang together. I mean, overall, I mean, I can see why somebody would fall asleep after 30 minutes. I mean, it was just not that engaging, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
anyway,
That's
yeah.
right.
Well,
And
the first 30 minutes is just them, complaining about infidelity, and that didn't really happen. That was the weird thing. Is it's all like implied that it was about to happen in both cases, and then it didn't happen, and then they have this weird conversation when they're on pot, where she's laughing,
Yeah.
wanting to cheat on him, and that kind of thing. It's really
Mhm.
weird. It just
Yeah.
the first 30 minutes is just not in that engaging at all.
Exactly.
And
It's
again,
like,
you're like, this is Stanley Kubrick. You keep saying
Yeah.
that throughout.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the best I can say about this movie is like pretty much all of Kubrick's films was shot beautifully. I mean, his cinematography is always he always hires the best cinematographers, and so there's always this I don't know, very polished, very just beautiful, very painterly look to his movies. But again, that's just not enough to save this movie from being just you know, not even mediocre, really. So
Well, and again, you gotta say the story has got to be part of the problem with that.
exactly, yeah, yeah. It just wasn't a very engaging story. I mean, I've seen criticisms where, of course, everybody talks about the book that it's based on, saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, how the book is so much better," and why
Right.
didn't Kubrick follow the book, and blah blah blah, and so on and so
How did
forth.
it differ
So
from the book? Like, I never read the book, so
I didn't read the book either, so I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm curious. So
I'm curious too. Yeah, maybe
now
the
I'm
book
like,
was fantastic, but however
yeah,
he deviated, it was not a great idea. Well, let's talk a little bit about what Kubrick did get right. Of course, most of his career, he did get it right, and that's why he's one of the most iconic filmmakers of all time. So,
yeah,
Manny, do you want to start us off and running?
sure.
I'm gonna think we're gonna talk about all of his movies because he only made 12 of them. So,
But I got my top
they're
five.
all
So
they're all worth noticing, or they're all
yeah,
worth mentioning.
yeah. So all right. So number one on my list is Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying. And what anchors this movie is just a stellar performance by Peter Sellers, who you see on the cover here, who played three different characters in this movie. Besides the titular Dr. Strangelove, he also played the President of the United States and an RAF, Royal Air Force commander. And the movie is it's a satire on the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union at the time. And it just points out the ridiculousness and the pointlessness of that sort of conflict. And we also get great performances from George C. Scott, from Sterling Hayden, Slim Pickens, who Rory has a nod to in his subtitle there, and
That's right. He's Major Kong.
Major Kong. That's right. He's the pilot of this B-52, and basically the story is his bomber goes off course. and is over Russia, and there's just this whole, it's just a mess. There was a similar movie that came out around the same time. I can't remember if it was before or after, called Failsafe, which was a much more serious version of kind of the same story with Henry Fonda and Walter Matthau, about a bomber that goes off course, and
True mouth though.
or they got their signals mixed up, and they thought that they were supposed to bomb Russia or something. But Kubrick just turns the whole thing into just it really points out, like I said, just the ridiculousness and the danger of the situation and the tensions between the two different countries. So anyway, so that was my number one.
It was my number two.
Oh, okay.
I weighed it up in my head because I really do like it a lot. It was the movie that took Spielberg into the mainstream when they paired him with Peter Sellers.
You mean Kubrick?
Yes. And well, yeah, and well, no, because Peter Sellers had done Pink Panther and Shot in the Dark before this.
Right.
He'd done the Mouse That Roared. He'd done a lot of notable films before this happened.
Right. Yeah.
But Kubrick had done some kind of B films, in his early career in the 50s. He did one called The Killing with Sterling Hayden. That kind of turned him towards bigger budget films because he was doing his first movie, Fear and Desire, was shot in a forest on like a shoestring budget. And it definitely shows promise as his being a storyteller director,
right,
which is War Tale. Then he did Killer's Kiss, which was a boxing movie. But again, it's the same. It's basically the same cast. It's a cast of people we don't know, most of them. Some of the same people. And then he did Paths of Glory with Kirk Douglas. And again, that is kind of steering him towards, bigger, better budget movies with actual named stars. But it's Dr. Strangelove that really, really got him noticed,
right,
from everybody. And ironically, Peter Sellers was supposed to play Kong as well, but he didn't want to play the character, so he kind of rebelled against it, and they ended up casting Slim Pickens as the character,
which was the better choice, really.
Yeah, and again, because I don't think Sellers could find the character. I think it's the problem. Sellers spends a lot of time looking for a character, and sometimes he can't find it. Which is ironic.
Yeah.
So, it's a wonderful film. Again, George C. Scott got him noticed. Started a career for him. With. His performance in that is just off the chain. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And Sellers at his best, playing the three characters. The president's name of the American president is, I think, Muffley is his name.
Something like that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Come on.
Just some ridiculous name like that. Yeah.
It's him doing a really broad American accent, which is really funny. Because we all know, he's very, very British. So my number one is The Shining.
Oh, okay.
Because here is a horror movie that is going down in history as being one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and the body count is 2.
Yeah,
and one of them is the killer. How can you do that? How can you make something so horrific and so terrifying, and the body count is only 2? So it's really, really a masterfully, terrifyingly horrific horror film. And it really pulls at your sense of fear. He unfortunately he was very protective. Kubrick was very protective of the little boy that was in the film, but he terrorized Shelley Duvall during that film, and got a truly unhinged performance from her, which makes the film. But I mean, at what cost? You know, I mean, she was traumatized from doing that movie.
Right. Yeah.
But it's so well made. It's just, oh man, it's a long film, but it just zooms by, and again, you get that claustrophobic feel of being stuck in that hotel with them, and you just watch him just go nuts.
Yeah.
Give me the bad, Wendy. Give me the
Here's Johnny. Yeah, that's the
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna beat your goddamn brains in.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about The Shining, and you're talking about Shelley and how she was like legitimately traumatized. Like, you know, a lot of people feel that her life totally was derailed by that. And the thing is like you said, that did make the movie because she came off as so unhinged because she was. But remember what a brilliant actress she is. I trust that she would have been able to deliver maybe even a better performance had she been able to leverage her training and her art and her innate talent. When she being so naturally unhinged means she wasn't able to be in a dramatic space and to actually, you know, give, you know, there's a difference between a documentary, right, and somebody actually acting and a director actually directing. So, I mean, because you can go out on the streets and find someone traumatized and make a documentary, but acting is a totally different thing where you're supposed to be in concert with your team, with the director, and leverage certain techniques that can deliver what is needed. And so I believe Shelley could have pulled that off in a total, maybe even a much better way. And of course, Jack Nicholson pulled off a fantastic thing without him actually being a homicidal maniac. I trust Jack. You know, well, but we know I wouldn't want to be alone with Jack Nicholson, but yeah, he is a little creepy, to be honest with you. Yeah. So, anyways, okay. But I love The Shining. Of course, I love The Shining. It's been remade, which I don't know why they bother. I mean, they had the guy from Wings in one, and not great, you know.
Weber,
Well, there was a reason for that.
Yeah, I love Steven Weber, but you know, he's not a Jack Nicholson, and he was not intimidating. Yeah.
No reason to do it over. Yeah.
And I think most people grew up
like Salem's Lot. You know, people that redid Salem's Lot with Rob Lowe of all people. And just why?
Yeah.
Without James Mason, seriously. It's Mr. Straker. So, and another Stephen King film. Okay, so that was my number one. My number two. What was your number two?
My number two is 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
Which to me is one of the, you know, there are very few movies that you can actually call a game changer. And 2001: A Space Odyssey was definitely one of those, because it literally changed the style and the face of science fiction movies, space movies after that. The way the spaceships were built, the special effects by Douglas Trumbull, all of that, the Stargate effect, you know, although Doctor Who was kind of doing that before that, but we won't mention that, even though I just did. But anyway, it's just one of those, and usually, I mean, before this, science fiction was considered B-movie material, with a few exceptions, like you know, Forbidden Planet and Day the Earth Stood Still, things like that.
Yeah, Forbidden Planet for me was the one that was the game changer. That was the one that brought the sci-fi, you know, into a different realm.
No, you're right. But I would say 2001 was kind of the second wave of that change, because it influenced everything else. I mean, it influenced Star Wars, it influenced Star Trek, it influenced TV shows like Battlestar Galactica, and just so on and so forth.
And I would like to think that Star Trek, the TV show, influenced 2001 because it came before, but
yeah,
but it was definitely for its time. It was a psychedelic experience into the realm of the unknown.
right.
That's my way of rationalizing it. And
Yeah.
just the whole story with Hal the robot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that.
Yeah. And it was such a small cast
Easy.
too. I mean, really, you had Gary Lockwood talking about Star Trek. You had the Gary Lockwood who was in the second pilot of Star Trek, and
Yeah,
Cubulay,
he
and
was in the first episode.
yeah, and actor named Douglas Rains who did the voice of Hal. That because he had that very soft that voice, and it sounded very mechanical. I mean, that's kind of what everybody, what Siri has kind of been working toward, or any of the
I
other
like the fact that it didn't sound mechanical, but it sounded kind of soft and soothing.
Yeah,
Which is what you don't expect from a killer robot.
exactly. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
Yeah.
You're gonna die, Dave.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, there was not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of. I mean, the whole first part of the movie, you have
And there wouldn't be if
eight.
you're all alone up in space. That's the whole
Yeah,
point.
yeah. And the other thing that really, was more game changing, I guess, was that Kubrick really wanted to go for realism as far as the space travel, which is why you had the big hamster wheel like thing where to simulate gravity and all that, and spacesuits and the little pods and how they moved and everything. So there was really a sense of realism in that respect.
And all that stuff got sent to Space 1999.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Martin Landau
Yeah,
and his wife, Barbara Payne.
exactly. Yeah.
That was my number 3 on my
Oh,
list. Yeah. So
okay.
we picked the first 3, kind of the same, just different order.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Number 4. I know it because you haven't said it yet, and I haven't said it yet.
All right, well, jump into your number 4 then.
Clockwork Orange.
Oh, okay. Actually, Clockwork Orange is my number 3.
I thought you said 1, 2, 3 already.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm still on 2.
So tell me about your number 3 then.
But number 3 is A Clockwork Orange, based
That's my number
on based on Anthony Burgess' novel, and incredible performance from Malcolm McDowell as Alex and his droogs, his band of miscreants. And again, this one is kind of sci-fi, but it's more dystopian.
Right.
It follows the narrative of the book pretty closely, and it's set in this future London, and Alex, Malcolm McDowell, his character, and his gang, they're just roving gangs of thugs, terrorizing people, breaking
Drinking
people's
milk,
homes,
raping people.
drinking. There's the spiked milk, and yeah, exactly. Just terrorizing, beating up bums on the street, and
Yeah.
Alex eventually he is captured. He's arrested and subjected to this horrible brainwashing technique. The it's called the Ludovico
To
technique
rehabilitate him.
to rehabilitate him. Yeah, and it's one of those situations where you got to think, man, the cure is worse than the disease. It turns him into this just sort of, and it really, it's a story about free will and and morality, and how do you enforce, can we as a society enforce a moral point of view, and what does it take to create that, and is that better than the alternative?
Right.
So there's a lot of things going on in this movie, and
And
it's
I'm sure
just
that's why Kubrick picked that film to do, because of that message.
exactly. So
Visually striking,
yes,
just like you said, the cinematography in it, just how the shots are set up and everything is just really, really striking.
yeah, and a
Um,
great soundtrack, and
I
one of
love
the
the
most
fact that
chilling uses
his
of
friends couldn't be rehabilitated in the same way, so they made them cops.
yeah, which again another interesting statement about
Yeah.
violence. I mean, the whole thing really is about violence and the nature of violence, and how do you control it? How do you
So
police
they
it?
made us boobies. Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
um. Oh crap! I had something I was going to say here. I thought it was important. I guess it wasn't.
The book is written in this futuristic language
Hmm.
that Alex and his characters, and it's all written from Alex's perspective.
Hmm.
Now, the big major change that they made from the book to the movie was the age of the characters. And the character in the book, they're basically teenagers. They're like 17, 18. And
Yeah.
there, of course, in the movie, they had to make them older because, the actors were older. Did the same thing with Logan's Run as well, another movie from the 70s. But yeah, and so the movie retains a little bit of that language.
Mhm.
But the book, I mean, it's once you get into the rhythm of it, and there's a big glossary that helps. Uh, it becomes like, oh, okay, now I understand what they're talking about. At first, you're like, what the hell is this? But
I remember what I was gonna say earlier.
okay,
Unfortunately, I enjoyed the Mad Magazine spoof of this more than I enjoyed the movie.
wow, okay,
It is one of the all time best spoofs they've ever done on the movies. Was
wow,
Mad Magazine's take on A Clockwork Orange, and that's all I'm gonna say. Go
yeah,
find it.
yeah.
It's hilarious.
I think I remember that. Yeah, it was what a Clockwork Orange or
A
something like that.
Clockwork Orange, yeah, I think was the
Yeah,
name of it.
yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, well, actually, I'd forgotten about that till you brought it up. But yeah, you're right.
Him
It
being
was
drunk, driven crazy
brilliant.
by the old man and jumping out the window and throwing up. Yep.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Okay, so what was your number 4 movie?
Yeah. My number 4 is Clockwork Orange.
Oh, okay, okay. My number 4 was The Shining. So
There you
we
go.
pretty much covered that.
So we come to
I,
the ultimate number 5.
I was gonna say something about The Shining,
Okay.
but what was it? Well, we covered what happened to Shelley Duvall, and being tortured by Kubrick. There's this whole conspiracy theory about The Shining, and well, not specifically about The Shining, but really about Stanley Kubrick. That he, that the moon landing was faked, and that Kubrick helped fake the moon landing, and that The Shining has clues to the fact that Kubrick was trying to kind of subliminally say that, yeah, I faked the moon landing. And one piece of evidence is the fact that the little boy is wearing the shirt that has an Apollo rocket ship on it. It's like, hint, hint, see, and all that. And
Okay.
tying it back to 2001, that, see, he faked the moon landing. It was a set from 2001, and here's the evidence. And there's a whole documentary called Room 237 about that, and about some other craziness surrounding this movie. So anyway,
Uh, yeah, we would spend a gazillion dollars on spaceships just to fake it. Yeah, sure.
exactly, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. That makes total sense.
yeah. All right, so what was your number 5 then?
Lolita.
Okay.
With James Mason.
Yes.
I think this was Kubrick's his first foray into comedy, dark comedy.
Hmm.
And again, the subject matter is very provocative.
Yeah.
And you feel so sorry for poor Shelley Winters. And Mason gets what he deserves, at the end, which is good.
Mhm.
Peter Sellers in this, again, the beginning of, you know, uh, it's the beginning of Kubrick's ascension to, real, full-blown, full-budgeted filmmaking.
Mhm.
Dr. Strangelove got him noticed, but this one, definitely shows that he's got the talent, he's got the know-how. So yeah, it's my number 5. It's a delightful dark comedy, and yeah, even though subject matter is just really on the edge there.
Yeah.
Again, the just desserts are served at the end. So
Yeah. Yep. Based on a novel by Nabokov, Vladimir Nabokov, which was name checked in a song by the Police, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, of course, it's been remade as well, or at least another version of the book was filmed.
yeah,
But
I watched the other version with Jeremy Irons, and not near as entertaining as the first one, and just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Just kind of twisted, sick, and weird.
So,
He missed the point.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right.
Whoever directed that one.
Shelley Duvall, Shelley Winters, James Mason, and props to Sue Lyons who played Lolita. Very very seductive and very you could see her, and Lolita has come to be a term for sort of seductive young girls,
Correct.
enticing the older men. But yeah, gold diggers.
And ironically, I'm eating cheese nips.
No, there you go. So my number 5 was it was a toss up between two different movies, but finally I decided to settle on this one, and it's Paths of Glory, which you mentioned earlier. It's between this one and Full Metal Jacket, but I saw them both and I thought Paths of Glory is
now I'm surprised that Barry Lyndon wasn't on that list, because you were making a big fuss about Barry Lyndon, and I watched it that night.
I made a big fuss about it.
Yeah, of course we're going to talk about Barry Lyndon. I'm like, oh well, maybe I should give it a second look, and I watched it, and it was entertaining, yeah. But for the whole movie, I'm like, what the hell? Who's the star of it?
Ryan O'Neal.
Ryan O'Neal. What the hell is Ryan O'Neal doing in the middle of this?
I know.
That was my biggest problem with it. It was a long film. It was entertaining from beginning to end. It was an interesting story, but I just kept going, what the hell is Ryan O'Neal doing in this? And I like Ryan O'Neal. I love him in Paper. I like him, but he just seemed out of place in that.
We'll get to that, but Paths of Glory.
Okay.
For those who don't know, it's
Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas. He stars. He is a French officer during World War One.
Mm-hmm.
He is ordered by this kind of obnoxious general to try to take this hill, the ant hill, as they call it, and fails basically. His troops.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nearly impossible. It's so the general decides that these people are, they're cowards for not charging into the, and all this stuff, and he wants to, execute 100 soldiers from this company, and Douglas is like, you're nuts. He doesn't say that, but basically that's and so after a while they reduce it to 3. It's like, pick one man from each company, and so they pick 3 men to be executed, and Douglas, he's trying to follow orders, but he's also trying to find a way to exonerate this man. And there's this kangaroo court. I mean, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that these guys were not going to be let off. they were going to get killed.
Yeah.
And again, it's another movie like Dr. Strangelove about just the futility and the stupidity that happens in war.
Agreed.
And it's a dark movie, but again, great performance from Douglas. A young Ralph Meeker is in this, one of the soldiers. Who, again, through no fault of his own, winds up getting his head on the chopping block. I mean, not literally, but he's going to be put up in front of a firing squad.
Yeah.
And just the the power tripping by the higher ups, and Douglas's frustration trying to get these men off, the firing squad. And I don't want to give it away, so I'll just leave it at that. And apparently Jonathan Duncan loved Barry Lyndon. They made it his number one.
John Duncan made Barry Lyndon his number one.
Yeah, and the rest are
because Ryan O'Neal does such a great Irish accent.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was my number 5. All right, so what were your honorable mentions?
I think since we just mentioned Paths of Glory, we got to move on to Spartacus.
Spartacus, yeah.
Spartacus,
yeah.
I've seen the version with the oyster scene in it.
Oh yeah.
And Tony Curtis. I love to see Tony.
You're wondering
Curtis
about Ryan O'Neal. We had Tony Curtis playing.
Tony Curtis in period pieces. I love it.
But anyway,
so
yonder lies the castle of my father.
Yes, yonder lies the castle of my father.
Anyway,
that was supposed to be in the Black Shield of Falworth, but that's actually it's a myth. He says something like that in another film, but it's not exactly the same, and it's not as bad as yonder lies.
It's an easy way to do a Tony Curtis impression. So.
But Spartacus is definitely, it should have been on my top 5 list. I mean, it really is a spectacle. It succeeded where movies like El Cid and Cleopatra didn't, as far as making, a grandiose, it's Gladiators, for crying out loud. It's Gladiators before Gladiators. It's,
right, exactly.
And it's Kirk Douglas.
Or 300.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Without the comic booky look. It's not a happy ending. That might be one reason why it didn't make my top 5.
Yeah.
But it's just a very entertaining, well made. It's long. It's like 3 hours long.
Oh yeah.
But that was back at the time when the movies were 3 hours and you had an intermission and you had an overture at the beginning, and that's what they were doing back in the 1960, in the turn of the decade there. And it's a wonderful movie. It's definitely in its top 6. If I had a 6th choice, that would be it.
So Kirk Douglas, like I said, Tony Curtis, Laurence Olivier is in it. Just a super cast, and yeah, you're right. It's a great movie.
Okay, so the only one we haven't really talked about, and you mentioned it just now, is I'm sorry, not Eyes Wide Shut.
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
I sent an audition tape in for this because at that time I was in junior college and they were asking for videotape auditions of people, just regular people, to play characters in the movie. They wanted to get real people, not actors, like known actors. They wanted to get real people. So I sent an audition tape in, didn't get called back. And the person that did get called back and it started his career was Gunny Arlie Ermey. Well, yeah, D'Onofrio got his first real notice in that. Wasn't it Pyle? No, Pyle was the main character. Matthew Modine. He was.
No. The sergeant kept referring to him as Gomer Pyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but the
was
sergeant was a real drill sergeant, Arlie Ermey.
Right.
Whose fans know him as Gunny. What is your reflection, boy? And
Yeah.
he actually started his career with that because he sent in an audition tape and they liked him and they brought him in. And they weren't going to give him such a big role, but he was so real and so natural. Kubrick just decided, I'm going to make him the drill sergeant. I'm going to make him the guy.
Yeah. I mean, that was,
and that's where it all started for him.
yeah. I mean, that was just an electrifying performance. Yeah. I mean, when I first saw that movie, I thought, my God, who is this guy? I didn't know he wasn't an actor. And then, of course, later on, found out, that he really was a former drill sergeant. And
yeah,
I was like,
and
wow.
again, half the movie roles that he played were basically like drill sergeant types. He plays the head of the toy soldiers in Toy Story. He played a ghost who was watching over a cemetery in what was the one with Michael J. Fox?
Oh, The Frighteners?
Frighteners.
Yeah.
Frighteners. But he's played some other great roles. Like he was in Mississippi Burning as he was the town mayor in that. He was part of the conspiracy,
Right, yeah.
And ends up hanging himself in that film. He's got a long, illustrious career thanks to Stanley Kubrick for picking him.
Yeah.
And upgrading his role in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
My problem with Full Metal Jacket is it just didn't seem like Vietnam to me. It seemed like a backlot in London.
Which it was.
I mean, it was too obvious.
Yeah. That what was supposed to be Way City was actually an old factory that was due to be torn down or something. And they said, yeah, you can blow it up or do whatever you want with it. And Kubrick had a bunch of palm trees flown in, so to make it look more tropical, to make northern England look tropical, or actually
the problem
like
was
outside
that
of London.
they made the movie after Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
So it's like you compare the two, and it's like, wow,
Yeah, there's no comparison.
It's got some character, but it doesn't have Marlon Brando making up his little dialogue. The horror,
yeah.
Is he a kind man? Is he a giving man? A loving man? Doesn't have Dennis Hopper bouncing off the set.
The photo
with his camera.
You can't land on fractions, man. You can't land on a half a thing, Dude,
you want to watch a hell of a documentary? Hearts of Darkness, the making of the Apocalypse Now. Oh my God! Anything that could have gone wrong with a movie being shot went wrong during the making of that movie.
Yeah.
The monsoon season came in. The star was replaced a couple weeks into filming. It was Harvey Keitel. They fired him and hired Martin Sheen. Martin Sheen has a heart attack while they're filming. Oh my God!
And that scene where he smashes the mirror. I mean, that was a real mirror, and that was his real blood.
He really broke the mirror and cut his hand. Yeah, and they went with it.
I mean, it seemed to fit the character. And
because he got drunk.
Yeah,
he did get drunk for that scene. I mean, he was method acting. And again, Dennis Hopper shows up and he's stoned out of his gourd and he can't get his lines right. Brando shows up. He's supposed to be emaciated. He's gained like all this weight. He's huge.
Yeah.
and they decided to go the other route. Oh, well, he's living an opulent life, sponging off of all these people. And then he says, I don't want to read the dialogue. I want to make up my own dialogue. He starts making up his own dialogue. Director's nightmare.
Yeah, but I mean, it was good dialogue. I mean, it fit the character. I think just this Colonel has just gone insane. Colonel Kurtz.
He is insane.
Yeah.
But the Full Metal Jacket is entertaining. It is.
Yeah, it has its moments. It still has its moments. So it's an interesting movie. So that was on my list of honorable mentions, along with Lolita and Spartacus. So
Spartacus.
Yeah, and something else that was on my list. I'm trying to think.
The Killing.
Oh, The Killing. Actually, I watched The Killing the other day.
Yes.
Sterling Hayden again, wonderful actor, and you could definitely see. I mean, this could have been a Quentin Tarantino movie, and you could definitely see the influences on him from this movie with Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. Because again,
It's
it
a
has the
caper
fractured.
movie. It really is. It's
Great
Kubrick's
caper
caper
movie.
movie.
Yeah,
And the ending is, I'm not going to say what happens in the ending. The ending is great. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And executed perfectly. That poodle.
Yes. All because of a freaking dog. Which, if you haven't seen the movie, you got it. I highly it's on where is it on? It's on one of the free streaming Pluto.
The whole side story with Elisha Cook and his wife is just brutal.
Oh, Elisha Cook, so
brutal.
weaselly. I mean, he wanted us, and she. I mean, like I said, if Tarantino made this movie, that would have been probably Uma Thurman would have played that part. But yeah,
I can see that.
It's a really great movie. Even and normally I don't
Robert
like
De Niro would have been Elisha Cook's character.
or the head guy or Hayden's character. Yeah.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Anyway, go see this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, or if you haven't seen it in a while, see this movie. It's great. Like I said, it's a caper movie. Oh, the narration. Normally, the narrated in movies bugs the hell out of me. Because it's like, why are you telling me? But I can see why they did it.
In his early movies, there's a lot of narration at the beginnings of the movies. Yes,
but I can see why they did that, because again, it was one of those movies where it's non-linear, like Pulp Fiction, non-linear narrative. But the narration, because it's so very matter of fact, kind of like Dragnet, Jack Webb's narration. It gives it almost a documentary quality. Yeah, no, it gives it a documentary quality. Like, this is a real story, and these are the facts of the events that as they happened and all that stuff.
Star Sterling Hayden and Elisha Cook. The real names of the characters.
Yes, Jonathan, you should see this movie.
The innocent and the guilty.
Yeah. We're working the day watch out of Rampart Division. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I was really
he's my partner.
Excited. Yeah.
Horse hockey.
Frank Morgan, who went on to play Colonel
Potter, right?
Colonel Potter, yeah, on MASH.
That's right. Frank Morgan was the actor's name. Bill Gannon was the partner. His name was Bill Gannon. That's right.
Bill Gannon, yeah.
Wait a minute.
No, actually, that was the original guy. That was because he came later. There was another
guy who played the Wizard of Oz?
Frank Morgan.
It was Frank Morgan, right?
Yeah.
Henry Morgan.
Henry Morgan, yeah.
Henry Morgan. There he goes. Played Bill Gannon.
Right. And again, that's another theme song that's become iconic now. Every time you talk about the Popo, it's bum ba-dum bum.
She was a Lolita. She was living in sin in a trailer.
Living in sin in a trailer.
And we got called.
Yeah. Renee?
We haven't seen her all episode. I'll just pop in when you least expect it.
Well, I wanted to hear what everyone was talking about. I haven't seen all of these. The ones that I've seen, of course, are the notable ones, like in your top 5. And I saw them when I was young, and a lot of them are visually. So Kubrick was really noted for doing a lot of visually abject, sort of things you can't unsee, like Jack Nicholson's head doing that, or A Clockwork Orange with his eyes being open in the theater. All of these things. he has that striking way of, even if you're not following the plot or you're just seeing like one scene, it's in your brain now for the rest of your life. You know, the twins in The Shining standing in the hallway, or the old
play
lady
with us.
ghost in the bathroom. You know, you can't.
He's driving in the car super fast,
Right.
which kind of harkens back to the Batmobile in the '66 television show. I know that was a nod to that he did, because Batman was huge in England.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but he's very like, and Metal Jacket had a lot of that too. I'm just thinking of, like, when I saw these when I was young, especially as like a little girl, because every boy loved Kubrick, and so every like date night they're always like, hey. And I appreciate him as a director now, but at the time, like, I'm seeing a lot of violence and I'm not seeing the context, right? So as a little girl, I would see things out of, and so for me, I'm like, this is pretty, is he making fun of violence? Is he making fun of women? Is he objectifying human beings? Because I was too young to get the totality of what he was doing. So I would caution people, like with Kubrick, it's something where you need the bird's eye view. You need to sit through a whole film and really trust that process. And I think he was trying to get there with Eyes Wide Shut as well. It just, he wasn't able to execute it. He was trying to make certain statements, but it just wasn't there for myself. So I came late to the Kubrick party because I was introduced to it before the internet. So I would see like little bits.
Did you rent a costume and get a mask?
No, I did. But I think of it now. I do have one from Italy, and I think of that stupid movie now every time I use it. It just, he was like trying to be shocking, but he really is shocking. Like his other stuff actually is shocking. He was confronting and using humor too to confront really interesting things like war and violence and sexuality. And, he did that quite well. And I think he was offensive intentionally at times. And I think that he was accidentally offensive because, like I said, if you don't sit and really
terrorize Shelley Duvall,
or the,
But no, you mentioned the ultra violence and that juxtaposed with Manny saying he's the modern day, or Quentin Tarantino is the modern day Kubrick.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Yeah,
because I mean, they actually use amputees in Spartacus. Who got their arms, or it was a fake arm, attached to the amputee's arm. They get their arms cut off and stuff. So yeah, I mean, some of that stuff was really, really ultra violent, like you said. The war scenes in Barry Lyndon also pretty violent.
I didn't see that one, but yeah.
He actually gets shot in the knee and it shatters his whole knee, and they have to take his leg off. So yeah, it's there. Like you said, the ultra violence is there. And again, Lolita, how that film ever got made in that day and time. Wow.
And the book is phenomenal. I mean, that's one of my favorite novels. The novel Lolita is just incredible, and it's so classy and it's so elegant, actually. But you have to remember, it's also Russian. There are different cultural standards, there's different era standards and stuff. But Lolita, basically, the message that I got from the film and from the novel is, it's not really some racy thing. It's actually about his love, and at some point she's pregnant and she's overweight and she's kind of old and she's not the same little Lolita, and how he feels about her and how his feelings transcend certain things and it doesn't transcend other things. So it's a really deep, like, Russian introspective journey on life and philosophy and romance and everything. So I think that's why it got made. But yeah, you're right. Like, it is interesting. Like, when people say Lolita now, they mean something that's really awful. They use it as a euphemism for something terrible.
Right. She was looking to get away from her mother. Right. And her stepfather was the way she could do it. And so she sets out to seduce him, and it works. I mean, the seduction, she pulls it off, but wow.
Yeah. And, like what I'm saying too about the cautionary stuff is, when I'm so young and I'm being exposed to these films, either by my older brother and his friends, or like my boyfriends or whatever,
let's watch Lolita.
Well, no, but not that one. But I'm talking about the violent ones, or the ones that kind of like make fun of sexuality or whatever. You got to understand, like, the boys, when they're 12, 13, 14, and they're seeing that, they're not also getting the bigger context. They're thinking this is fun and funny. And it really was, I think, a bad, it sets a bad example for boys who think that that's cool, but they're not thinking about the opposite. Like you have A Clockwork Orange and it's saying violence is bad, but a 12-year-old boy doesn't get that. A 12-year-old boy thinks, oh, wow, they're singing and dancing and smiling as they're doing atrocious things. And they have these things on their genitals. Like, it's like,
yeah, the big cod pieces. Yeah.
right. And it's really
Things on their
intimidating for little
genitals.
girls to see that, because it's putting sex and violence together in a way that, like, if you're going through puberty, that's not a healthy thing. So I would caution people, like, these are types of movies I wouldn't bring your kid to. I wouldn't watch them with your 10-year-old, your 11-year-old. I appreciate them now.
And ironically, yeah, I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey when I was like 8.
Well, that
Wow.
one, yeah, that's a little different, though. I think 8. Wow, what year did that come out?
It's not Clockwork Orange. Get you? I get you, but
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
68.
68. Okay. When did you see all of these, Manny? Like, what was your first Kubrick? Like, that's the thing. Which Kubrick were you guys introduced to first? I think mine was A Clockwork Orange. I'm pretty sure.
2001.
Yeah, that was. And then Manny, what was yours?
I don't think I saw one before that. I was 8 years old.
Mine was.
How did you see it when you were 8?
It was playing in a theater close to my house.
They re-released it every
4 years
2
after
years.
the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they re-released it several times.
Yeah.
My first one was Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's got a lot of visuals, great visuals, especially at the end. And, that one is really, it's a great conversation piece too,
Yeah, but I was very young. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was preteen, and still an adolescent, probably about 8 or 9, maybe. And so I didn't get a lot of it. It really kind of went over my head. The thing the only thing that I really remembered from that movie when I saw it the first time was what happens at the end with Major Kong and the bomb.
Hanging on the bomb.
Hanging on the bomb. Yeah, exactly. I thought that was so weird. It's like, but he's gonna die. Why is he on that? And so it really went over my head. But when I saw it years later,
right,
as an adult, I rented it back when we still had Blockbusters, stuff like that.
Blockbuster Video, wow.
Yeah.
So I saw it and I said, oh, I got to see this movie. So I rented it and watched it again, and it just became a whole new experience. And now I had context for it. Now because I knew about the Cold War, and I knew who these actors were, Peter Sellers and George C. Scott and all that. I'd also seen Patton, and I realized just what an incredibly brilliant movie this was. And then when 2001 was re-released in the late 70s, I went to see it. But then I was a teenager. I was 17, 18, something like that. And I thought it was great. I thought it was brilliant. I wasn't high like everybody else, It's like, yeah, man, you gotta drink some. Like, no. And of course I love sci-fi and all that, and I just thought it was incredibly brilliant.
My appreciation for classical music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I bought the soundtrack on vinyl. I had the record for a long time. Played it so much that it got all scratched up and everything. So I was going to buy it on
point out
CD,
too that there is a movie out there where Jeffrey Rush is doing a kind of a biopic about Peter Sellers, and they spend a lot of time on Dr. Strangelove, and Stanley Tucci plays Kubrick.
Oh, I love Tucci. He's so great.
He's great.
And John Lithgow plays
gosh,
Blake Edwards.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect.
He has fights with Sellers while they're doing the Pink Panther films.
I saw that on. Perfect. I think it was on HBO.
Yeah,
I saw that one. Yeah, it was a great. And Rush does a really good job.
He does. Sellers. He plays all the characters, and they have Sellers play all the other characters, like the directors in scenes when they're giving exposition.
Yeah,
which
because
is
he was still alive at the
He's wearing
time.
the same wigs, you know, as the directors, and the same makeup and costume and stuff as the directors,
Right, yeah.
Kubrick and Blake Edwards, as he's giving commentary on what his life was like at that time. You know,
Yeah.
he was a messed up human being.
Yeah, really interesting biography.
Yeah, they really kind of went in heavily on his relationship with is it Britt
Eklund.
Britt Eklund, yeah.
See, all of these movies are the type, like what Manny, what you're talking about is, film schools, dissect them. And that now with the internet, you can access all kinds of stuff and read about other people's impressions. Because basically what Kubrick is doing is he's opening up conversations about art, how to tell a story, and also topics, right? So you can watch Dr. Strangelove and start talking about the Cold War or violence or war or comedy or whatever the heck. Like, there's just all these conversations to be had. They're not just movies, I don't think. I think they're bigger than just movies. I think, that's why so many people explore them. That's why they stand the test
and each
of time.
movie is different. Again,
everyone is different.
He's got his boxing film, he's got his caper film, he's got his horror film, he's got his sci-fi film. He's got his period piece with Barry Lyndon and Spartacus, different periods. And again, the grand epic, which was big at the time. I mean, he did each one of the genres, until he got to Eyes Wide Shut.
Right. And then he jumped the shark and then he died. And
then he jumped the shark, he died.
Jumped the shark and died.
Jumped the shark and died,
Yeah.
But
poor man, that's his legacy. I ended on Eyes Wide Shut.
But at least he did it with Cruise and Kidman, they all went in together on
working with Tom Cruise and his wife.
Yeah. And I was telling Rory before we went on that his next movie after Eyes Wide Shut was going to be AI,
right?
With artificial intelligence, the one with Osment, Joel Osment and Jude Law. No, it hadn't been cast yet, but
do you think Steven Spielberg directed that in the style of Kubrick?
I think he tried to. Yeah.
He
had the script and he had all of. Kubrick storyboarded everything. He had this meticulous. That's why it took so long in between movies, because he planned these things out to the nth degree. And so, but still, like I was saying, I don't know how Kubrick would have made this movie, but Steven had to inject a lot of his sort of sentimentality and and all that stuff, and it didn't ruin the movie for me, but I felt like there was the way it ended. I mean, the ending was like, oh no, it should have ended earlier. There was a certain point at which the movie should have ended, and I thought that would have been perfect. But no, he had to go on and give it this kind of happy ending. It just felt tacked on. It really did.
So, a Hollywood happy ending.
A Hollywood happy ending, exactly. and I mean, I love the rest of the movie. I thought it was really good and really a good exploration into artificial intelligence and kind of machine love and all this other stuff. And it just ended on this note of like, no, Steven, really, I don't think this is where Kubrick would have ended this movie. But anyway, that's just my little rant on that.
I totally get it. I get it. Rory, I see your face. That's why I thought you were going to say
let him rot in the bottom of that ocean.
No.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what I would have done. Yeah, that's where I felt like that's where it should have ended, right there. Finding out that the Blue Fairy was just a myth the whole time, and and just the kind of sadness. I don't know. So, but that's just me.
Rory, what do you think? Rory,
I like a downer ending every now and again.
No, Rory's got all of these like faces that he's making, and I want to hear desperately that he's not saying it. Just say something.
I said it.
Come on, do it.
I said it. He would have let him die at the bottom of the ocean,
Okay. All right.
Ang Lee.
Somebody's saying Ang Lee's 69th birthday, you guys like his stuff. Do you like his stuff?
Yeah.
But not as much as Vincent Price. Next week is Halloween week, so we got to do Vincent Price next.
Okay,
We're
yeah.
doing
Who are we?
Vincent
Are we
Price.
doing Vincent Price next
We're
week?
doing Vincent Price.
Hey,
Vincent
that's
Price
sweet.
next week.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. That's fantastic.
Yes.
I love everything about him. So everybody make sure you tune
Extraordinary.
in. Vincent
Yeah.
Price is going to be in the
I'm sure you'll
spotlight.
have more to say, Miss Renee.
Oh, I have a lot to say about Vincent Price. Come on, who doesn't? He's fantastic. The only thing I know is that when Vincent Price died, I said, he was still alive? Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe he was still alive. I was like, I thought he died 10 years ago.
Yeah, I met him when he was in that stage of his life. I met him in '84, just before he died.
You know, there's like people that you assume, like John Lee Hooker died, and I was like, I thought John Lee Hooker had died like 10 years ago.
10 years early. I know. Yeah.
Like I don't
like,
know.
wait a minute. He was still alive then?
Rory
I feel
makes
like Vincent
faces.
Price was always
makes
dead. I feel like Vincent Price was just always dead, you know? I don't know. I'm more surprised that Vincent Price was alive. Like, I'm really surprised that he was a child. He was a very good-looking young man, too. Very, very good-looking and very talented, of course. Very charismatic, very attractive person.
Charismatic, yeah.
And then he made House of Wax.
And he made House of
That
Wax.
changed it all.
Yeah.
But Vincent Price is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. And everybody in the audience is too. So yes, next week, everybody, Vincent Price, tune on in. Come with your comments and your opinions. And I can't wait to see what you guys
costumes if you want.
What'd you say?
And your costumes if you want.
Oh, that's true. I'm kind of always in costume, so I forget that. It's just like an object permanence disorder, David says. I think it is. I think my development was stalled sometime around 8 months or something. David is
I
love
you
it.
don't see him. I think that's what dogs think when you walk out of the room.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Except they smell us. If not for the olfactory superiority. Right.
And
yeah.
when we come back, that's why they're so happy. So, oh my God, I thought you were dead.
I thought you were dead this whole time.
I was going to have to eat the cat.
Not only are you not dead, but you have food. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
The same thing with cats, you know. Yeah.
I thought cats are like, oh, you're home.
And cats are like, I could take you or leave you right now.
Gene Hackman is still alive? What? Sorry.
You know, at some point, hopefully, if God is good to us, we'll all be that age. Where then, I hope to be that age that when, I die, everyone's like, I thought she died 20 years ago. What the only one who wasn't like that was the only one who wasn't like that.
There's a room full of wigs behind.
But wait. When Betty White died, everyone, including myself, was like, it's too soon. Betty
White's dead?
No, you're so, she was so old, but she was so full of vim and vigor. It just felt like
she
I'm still confused that she's dead. I feel like she's alive.
Right up to,
She's kind of still always alive. Rue McClanahan, same thing. I feel like she's still alive. So I don't think it's age. I think it's that Vincent Price just always looked that way. John Lee Hooker always looked that way.
I'm sorry. Oh my God, I went there.
They'll always live in my heart. They'll live here.
Oh my gosh, hilarious. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, guys, we're gonna go for real, but thank you everyone for tuning in. This was a fun one, of course. Iconic director and iconic show. But Vincent Price lives forever, and we will be delving in deep with Vincent Price. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. John, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any last words, Manny? Do you have any last words? Not really last words. Don't die.
Yeah, don't jinx me, man.
Yeah, don't.
You mean he's not dead? Nope. Yeah, just tune in next week. Vincent Price, our Halloween special. So be there or be square.
That's right.
Same bad time, same bad channel.
Tomorrow night, It's Casual with actor John Michael Urbano and Robin Henkel.
That's a great show.
Jazz blues man. Yeah.
So happy about
both
that
on our show for a while. So we'll do that tomorrow at 6.
What's
General Howitzer and Big Monster Briefing Room with Major Millie Hazard. Doing Dracula 1931 with Bela Lugosi, and the colorization is beautiful on this one.
Nice.
Yeah, excited.
Some of the best picks I've seen come out of that program. So
awesome.
I'm really excited about it.
All right. It's a great week ahead. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Two Guys and Sometimes a Gal Talking About Movies. Be sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell to get future episodes.